The sound of glass breaking paled next to the gasp that swept through the dining hall. Evelyn Turner, adorned in pearls and pride, had just seized Grace, the quiet maid, and torn her uniform in front of 20 elite guests. For a moment, the grand chandelier above seemed to dim. Grace stood frozen, hands trembling, her dignity ripped apart with the fabric. Then Jack Turner rose from his seat, his eyes blazing with fury. Grace, 28, a young black woman with a calm spirit and gentle hands, had worked hard since childhood. She lived quietly, never seeking attention. But in the Turner mansion, her presence resonated. She cleaned, served, and kept her head low. Yet her grace, the very essence of her name, caught eyes. Especially Jack Turner's. Jack, the millionaire heir in his early 30s, admired her from the day she arrived. It wasn't just her beauty, though her dark eyes held something rare. It was her patience, enduring sharp words without breaking, treating everyone from gardener to butler with quiet respect. But admiration is risky when watched by sharp eyes, none sharper than Evelyn Turner's, Jack's mother. Evelyn carried power in every step, her life built on rules, wealth, and appearances. To her, staff were tools, not people with stories. Grace, despite her humility, began to grate on her. It started small. "Don't walk so loudly," Evelyn snapped one morning, though Grace's steps were featherlight. When Jack praised the table arrangement, Evelyn cut in, crediting the florist, not the maid. Grace always bowed her head, murmuring, "Yes, ma'am." But Evelyn noticed Jack's lingering gaze, his softened tone, and that, to her, was a threat. One afternoon, Evelyn's friend Margaret Dawson visited. As Grace served tea on the terrace, Margaret's eyes narrowed. "She's quite pretty for a maid," she whispered. Evelyn's face tightened. "Pretty?" She gave a sharp laugh. "She's ordinary, nothing but help in this house." Grace overheard but placed the sugar bowl down gently, as if the words didn't cut. Jack saw more than anyone knew. One evening, he stopped Grace in the corridor. "You don't have to take her words," he said softly. Grace met his eyes, steady as ever. "It's my work, sir." "Words don't change that." Jack's jaw tightened. "One day, I'll show you you're worth more than how she treats you." Grace lowered her gaze, aware someone might overhear. Yet a small warmth sparked inside her, one she'd never admit. The mansion buzzed with preparations for a grand dinner. Evelyn planned it with precision, inviting wealthy families, business partners, and society's elite. Every fork gleamed, every flower perfectly placed. To Evelyn, it was a stage for control. To Grace, it was a test. Clara, another maid, whispered as they set the silver, "She's planning something. Be careful." Grace replied, "We'll do our work, that's all." But a storm was brewing. Evelyn had seen Jack watch Grace too often. She needed to make a point, loud, cruel, unforgettable. The night before, Evelyn summoned Grace to the drawing room. Her voice was calm, but her words sliced. "You may fool others with your quiet ways, but listen well. This isn't your home. You're not family, and you'll never see my son as anything but your master. Understand?" Grace bowed her head. "Yes, ma'am." Evelyn's eyes were ice. "Good. If you forget, I'll remind you in front of everyone." Grace left, heart heavy but step steady, telling herself it was just work, another storm to weather. But storms, however quiet, always break. And that night, under the chandelier's glitter, before the city's elite, Evelyn would make her cruel move, leaving the house speechless. The dinner night carried heavy expectations. The Turner mansion glowed, chandeliers blazing, silver forks shining like mirrors. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Inside, servants' footsteps mingled with violins warming up in the parlor. Grace moved through it all, uniform crisp, face calm, carrying trays, checking every detail. Beneath her steady surface, her heart pounded. Evelyn's warning echoed, "If you forget, I'll remind you in front of everyone." Clara brushed past with a bread basket. "Steady hands, Grace. We just need to survive tonight." Grace nodded softly. "We will." Guests arrived, men in tailored suits shaking Jack's hand, women in gowns sweeping in with sharp laughter. Margaret Dawson, draped in jewels, kissed Evelyn's cheek, whispering something that made them laugh. Grace stood by the entrance with a wine tray. Jack caught her eye as he guided a couple inside, giving a subtle nod of reassurance. Grace looked away quickly, mindful of her place, but his warmth carried her through the next hour. Dinner was called, and guests filled the grand dining room. The table sparkled under the chandelier, white lilies perfuming the air. Evelyn sat at the head, proud and poised. Grace served the east side, near Margaret and two society ladies. As she poured wine, one whispered, not softly enough, "Such a pretty girl to be just a maid." Margaret smirked. "Pretty things in uniforms can be dangerous." Evelyn's lips curved coldly, hearing but not correcting them. Her eyes flicked to Jack, who was watching Grace again. The first courses went smoothly. Grace carried trays, Clara passed bread, and Mr. Harris, the butler, orchestrated the rhythm. But tension thickened with each glance. Evelyn noted Jack's thanks to Grace, his softened eyes, his tightened jaw when guests mocked the staff. By the second course, her patience wore thin. She leaned to Margaret. "Watch this," she whispered. Margaret raised her brows, but stayed silent. It happened during the main course. Grace stepped forward to serve near Evelyn, hands steady, steps measured. Evelyn's voice sliced the air. "Stop!" The room fell silent, every guest turning. "Bring her closer," Evelyn commanded. Grace froze, then stepped nearer. Evelyn's eyes were sharp as blades. 2 years in my house, and you can't carry a tray properly. Look at you, standing like you belong here." Grace's heart raced, but she whispered, "I'm sorry, ma'am." Evelyn's hand shot out, gripping Grace's arm. Gasps rippled across the table. "You think my son's politeness makes you more than you are. You're nothing but a maid." Before Grace could react, Evelyn yanked her uniform, tearing it with a sharp rip, loud as thunder in the silence. Grace staggered back, clutching herself, the tray nearly slipping. The room froze, forks suspended, mouths open, murmurs rising. Margaret's hand flew to her pearls. "Evelyn," she whispered, half shocked, half amused. Grace's face burned, tears stinging, but she held them back, wanting to vanish. Then Jack's chair scraped loudly against the marble. He rose slowly, eyes blazing with fury. He removed his jacket and draped it gently over Grace's shoulders, covering her torn uniform. His hand steadied her trembling arm. "Mother," Jack said, voice low but steely. "That's enough." The silence deepened. Evelyn's lips parted in disbelief. "You humiliated her in front of everyone," Jack continued, "not because she failed, but because you despise her presence. You went too far." Evelyn tried to speak, but he raised a hand. "No. Tonight, you showed this room that cruelty, not class, rules your table. But not mine," gasped Spread. Some guests nodded faintly, others looked away, embarrassed. Grace stood frozen, tears breaking free, but Jack's jacket shielded her. His words rang like a vow. Evelyn's face paled, her pride wounded beyond repair. "You'd defend her over your family?" she hissed. Jack's reply was calm. "I'm defending what's right. That's what family should stand for." The table fell silent. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. Margaret forced a brittle laugh. What a passionate house. Perhaps dessert? But no one moved. The dinner had become a reckoning. Grace whispered, "Thank you, sir." Jack looked at her firmly. You don't thank someone for treating you as human." The words hit harder than Evelyn's insults. Grace's tears flowed, not from shame, but release. The night blurred. Guests left early, conversations hushed, footsteps awkward. The chandeliers still glittered, the lilies still scented the air, but the mansion's pride had cracked. In the servants' corridor, Clara squeezed Grace's hand. "You stood tall," she said. Grace shook her head. "I only stood because he did." But in her heart, something had shifted. Jack had seen her pain and stood against his mother for her. Evelyn sat alone in the grand hall, pearls shining, pride fractured. She tried to break Grace publicly. Instead, she exposed her son's heart, leaving the house, guests, and staff speechless. The Turner mansion felt heavier the next night. Silence spread through the hallways like a shadow. Even the staff, usually lively in their quarters, spoke in whispers. Everyone had seen Evelyn tear Grace's uniform, seen Jack defend her. The memory lingered. Grace sat alone in the staff room, fingers tracing Jack's jacket, still draped around her. She hadn't returned it. The faint scent of his cologne clung to it, and though she tried not to dwell, she couldn't stop thinking of how he'd stood for her. No one had before. Clara slipped in, closing the door. "You're still up," she said. Grace looked up, eyes tired. "Couldn't sleep." Clara sat beside her. "You showed strength last night, stronger than all of us. She wanted to break you, but you didn't let her see you fall." Grace shook her head. "I almost did. If Jack hadn't, he did, but you held your ground, Grace. That was yours." Grace didn't reply. She wasn't sure it was strength. She remembered the fabric tearing, the guests' stares, the burn of humiliation. The next morning, Jack entered the kitchen where Grace prepared trays. She froze. He didn't pause for formalities. "Grace, I'm sorry for what happened," he said, voice gentle but firm. "You don't need to apologize, sir," she whispered. "It wasn't you. But it was my house, my family," he said, eyes softening. "It should have been safe for you." Grace looked down. "I came to work. Safety wasn't promised." Jack set her tray aside. "I won't let her treat you like that again. Not while I'm here." Grace's heart pounded. "Sir, please. If you continue, she'll only get angrier. She already thinks that I care for you." Jack finished, unflinching. "She's right." Grace's eyes widened, but he continued. "I admire you, Grace. Not just your beauty, though it's undeniable. Your patience, your dignity, how you rise above insults without bitterness. That's rare." Grace's throat tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind him of their places, but the words wouldn't come. She whispered, "People will talk." "Let them," Jack said simply. Then Evelyn's voice cut through. "Jack." They turned. She stood at the kitchen door, face pale, eyes blazing. "Come with me. Now." In the grand sitting room, Evelyn faced her son, furious. "Have you lost your mind? You embarrassed this family before the city's elite, defending a servant over your mother." Jack stood tall. "I defended a woman who was wronged. You crossed a line. She's nothing, Jack. A maid." His voice hardened. "She's not nothing. She has more dignity in her silence than many at our table." Evelyn's hand trembled. "You'd throw away our name, our standing, for her?" "I throw away nothing," Jack said. "Love, respect, kindness, they give a name worth." The words landed heavily. Evelyn's breath caught. She hadn't expected her son, always polite, to stand so firmly against her. Word of the dinner spread fast. By noon, whispers swept the city, Evelyn's cruelty, Jack's defense. Some guests spoke with shock, others admiration. "The young Turner has a noble heart, maybe too noble." In the mansion, staff saw Grace differently, not just a maid, but a symbol of quiet strength. Nora, once sharp, brought her tea with trembling hands. Mr. Harris, the butler, gave her a respectful nod, as if saying, "You've earned your place." But Grace felt exposed, caught in a storm she hadn't sought. That night, she prayed in her small room. "Lord, I didn't ask for this. I only wanted work. Guide me through." A week later, Evelyn summoned Grace. By the fireplace, without her pearls, Evelyn looked weary. "Sit," she said. Grace hesitated. "I'll stand, ma'am." Evelyn studied her. "You think I hate you?" Grace stayed silent. Evelyn sighed. "Maybe I do. Not for who you are, but what you remind me of. I built this life on rules, control, class. You walked in with your silence, your patience, and shook it all without trying." "I never meant trouble, ma'am," Grace said. "I know," Evelyn replied, voice cracking. "But Jack sees something in you I can't change. When he stood against me, I felt powerless for the first time." Grace's hands trembled, but she steadied them. "I don't want power, ma'am. Just peace." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Maybe that's why he loves you." She looked away, hiding tears. "Go. Do your work." That evening, as the sun painted the mansion gold, Jack found Grace by the garden steps. Her plain uniform didn't hide her grace. His jacket still hung in her locker. He looked at her with the same steady gaze from the dinner. "My mother may never fully accept us, but I don't care. Grace, I won't let fear silence what I feel." Grace swallowed hard. "And what do you feel, sir?" Jack smiled softly. "That I love you, and I always will." Grace's breath caught, her heart pounding like drums. She had no words, but their silence spoke louder. The Turner mansion stood grand, chandeliers glittering, guests coming and going. But something had changed. The night Evelyn tried to tear a maid apart became the night her son showed true wealth, not in money or pearls, but in courage and love. Though the world whispered, inside those walls, the truth shone. Dignity can't be stolen, and love can't be silenced. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and join us in sharing stories that matter. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.